Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another social emotional workshop. Today we are with Henry Ford, and they are going to be doing a presentation on vaping. Lisa, welcome back. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you. So, hi, everyone. You've heard me say before that I'm a social worker at Henry Ford Maple Grove Center, but another part of my job is community education. So the program you're about to see is a program that was created for students in middle school and high school who get caught vaping. So it used to be that they would automatically get suspended, which means they could stay home from school and vape some more, but the school decided to do an educational program giving students the option of going to a 1-hour educational class on a Saturday morning in lieu of a 3-day suspension. So this is a program created by the Greater West Bloomfield Community Coalition, West Bloomfield Youth Assistance, the West Bloomfield School District, and we've opened it up to Farmington School District, which is another local district near us in the Metro Detroit area, the West Bloomfield Police Department, and the Henry Ford Health System. So what you're going to see is part of a presentation that we do for teens and at least one parent once a month on a Saturday morning in lieu of suspension. So our goals is to educate them about tobacco, vaping, and e-cigarettes, addiction and treatment options, health and legal consequences, and refusal strategies. So we talk about what is vaping. Most people have heard that term before. These are products that can be used to vape nicotine, but also they could be used to vape cannabis, which is marijuana. So it's any type of electronic vaporizer, e-cig, vapes, vape pens, vaporizers, disposable vapes, e-hookahs. You've probably heard all of these terms. There's a whole lot of different products, and the market is always changing. They are constantly developing new products and new terminology. So you're going to hear about new things all the time. So when people think of vaping, they think about breathing a harmless water vapor into their lungs. And what people don't understand is it's not harmless and it's not just water vapor. So these are a whole bunch of different products. You'll notice that they are very pretty, colorful, attractive to kids. Some can be odorless. If you look up in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see that they're quite small, or they can be small. So that means a student who is in person can put it in their hand in the middle of a classroom, smoke it. If it's odorless, the teacher won't know. So I imagine you guys don't deal with that, but people in public schools do, or in-person schools do. So read this to yourself. This is generally how they all work.
Are we ready to move on?
I think so. Okay, so prior to the pandemic, Juul was the #1 most popular brand of vaping product to be used by teens. And a Juul pad is about 1 inch by 1 inch. So it's very small. It looks pretty harmless. They're very colorful, but the amount of nicotine in that Juul pad is equal to 1 to 2 cigarettes. 1 to 2 packets of cigarettes, meaning 20 to 40 cigarettes. So clearly it's not harmless. And so you all know as educators that a teen's brain is not fully developed until the age of 25. And if they're using nicotine prior to their brain being developed, nicotine, like any other drug, is priming their brain for addiction and also for mental health problems. And 3 out of 4 nicotine smokers will smoke as adults, so 75%. And that's good news to Philip Morris. They are, as you may remember, the one of the top tobacco companies in our nation, and they are very happy to have young people smoking because 75% of them will be buying their products when they're adults. So what's in the aerosol? It's not just water vapor, it's volatile organic compounds. What does that mean? Ultrafine particles, okay, things we can't even define, but cancer-causing chemicals, heavy nickels, flavorings such as diacetyl, and of course, nicotine. And we never know what's in the products. Okay, they are allowed by the FDA to be marketed as 0% nicotine, but they don't have 0% nicotine. So in reality, what's in the juice? It's all of these products. So what I tell students is that formaldehyde is used to embalm dead bodies. Acetone is what women use to remove nail polish. But look at all these other chemicals. They all have very legitimate purposes in our society, but they are not meant to go into our brains, into our lungs. So then every student has a colored piece of paper. Every student and parent has a colored piece of paper that says agree or disagree. So you don't have that, but you'll think to yourself, here's some questions for you. E-cigarettes are safe. So do you agree or disagree? And of course, the answer is, next slide. The answer is disagree, because there is no such thing as a safe tobacco cigarette. You're going to hear some companies advertise that it is safer than traditional cigarettes. We don't know that that's true, but it does not mean they're safe, because like we talked about, it's not just vapor, it's all of those chemicals that we talked about. So the next question, agree or disagree? There have been no long-term studies on e-cigarettes. And the answer is, of course, agree, because they've only been around for about 15 years. They were developed in China and then came to America. So as most of you know, it took around 20 years for us to recognize that smoking traditional cigarettes had long-term consequences in terms of our health. So the research is still ongoing on vaping, vape pens and e-cigarettes and those types of products. So today's generation of vapors are actually the guinea pigs. The research is being done on that group of people. Okay, agree or disagree? E-cigarettes are approved by the US Food and Drug Administration as a quit tobacco device. Okay, the answer is disagree. They are not approved and they should not be marketed as such, but they are, and they're allowed to. So you see the new safe cig. Why quit? Just switch. Okay, they're allowed to market this way, and of course, teens and young adults and people who vape fall for that. Agree or disagree? Nicotine is a drug that is not addictive, and of course, we define addiction as something that is so enjoyable that you want to do it or have it as much as possible. So do you agree or disagree? And of course, the answer is disagree, because it is addictive. So what happens when a person smokes a cigarette or uses any type of nicotine product is it's absorbed through the nose and the mouth, the membranes, linings, and then the nicotine passes through the lungs and into the bloodstream, makes its way to the heart pumps it to all areas of the body, including the brain, and it hits the brain in about 10 to 20 seconds, pretty darn quickly. So what happens then is it stimulates the release of what we call feel-good chemicals like adrenaline and dopamine. And then it's metabolized, broken down by the liver, and excreted when we go to the bathroom. So what happens is the nicotine activates the brain's reward circuits within 10 to 20 seconds, which feels really, really good. And it motivates a person to continue the behavior, even though they know that there are health risks involved. Okay, agree or disagree? Vaping nicotine as a teenager will not affect your brain. And the answer, of course, is disagree, because what it does is it makes changes in the brain that are lifelong. Okay, because addiction, they're priming their brains for addiction until their brains are fully developed at the age of 25. Okay, vaping impacts the developing brain, as we said. Some of the, well, first of all, nicotine is, and I've heard this throughout my career, it's more addictive than any other drug, more addictive than heroin, than cocaine, than alcohol. And we never know what is in the content in these products, because traditional cigarettes, the companies that make them report on how much of each chemical is in it, but in vaping products, they don't have to do that. So not only is it causing addiction, but it's causing mental health problems, like problems with impulse control and mood disorders, and the areas of the brain responsible for attention, decision-making, judgment, planning, logic, and all of those things that they need to have if they're going to grow into healthy, well-functioning adults. So this is a video on brain development. I don't know if you can get it to play, Toni. If not, I can tell you what it's about. When you set it up, did you enable the content?
No, I did not.
Okay, that's all right. Let me just tell you what it's about. It's a teen educating her peers about how your brain, as it's developing, is like a keyboard, a computer keyboard. Everything has a place. When your brain is developing, there's a place for it to go, and it functions very well. But if you were to use alcohol or other drugs, what you're actually doing is like scrambling the keyboard. So it's not going to function the way a computer keyboard should. So it talks about how important it is for things like good nutrition, good sleep, getting exercise, and how important that is for brain development. And it acknowledges that kids don't want to be told what to do by their parents, but how important it is for them to understand that they are the ones in control of their brain development, and making good choices now will help them forever. So essentially, that's what that video says. This is a Facebook post. So a lot of kids love dogs. So read to yourself this Facebook post. So of course, many of our students have dogs and cats, but they also have young siblings or young people visiting the house. And these products are very colorful. They're flavored, so they taste good. And you can ask any emergency room physician, and they will tell you that they have seen young toddlers, babies and toddlers, come into the emergency room with nicotine poisoning. So we keep, we educate them about that. So here's some common myths. It's just flavoring. So flavors are in our food. They use chemicals to flavor our food, and it is safe for us to eat. It is not safe for us to put in our lungs. So there's some buttery flavored vapes that contain diacetyl That is a chemical that has been linked to lung disease in people who work for a microwave popcorn factory. And what it actually does to the lungs is it makes a lung look like popcorn, part of the lung. Another myth is my vape says it's nicotine free. There's no way I'll become addicted. Of course, even if they claim to be nicotine free, they are not. Okay, nicotine isn't that bad for me, but it is. As we learned, it can disrupt normal brain development and create mental health problems. It's not water vapor, but it is. I mean, it's just water vapor, but it's not because of all those chemicals. And this one's interesting. I don't have an addictive personality. I won't get hooked on vapes. And it doesn't matter if a person has an addictive personality or not. All of us are at risk because of the quick impact on the brain of a feel-good chemical. I mean, a chemical that releases feel-good endorphins. All of us are at risk, even if we don't have an addictive personality. And just because I vape doesn't mean I'm going to smoke, but research shows that you are. So these are some ads for vaping products. And what we call the teens' attention to is that this is not aimed at adults. Okay, adults are not attracted to this at all. And these are the flavors. Notice how pretty the colors are. Okay, these are not the types of flavors that appeal to adults. These flavors are appealing to teens. So they did some confidential anonymous studies of teens to find out where are you getting these Juul pods, and 74% was at a physical retail location like a gas station or a smoke shop. They're supposed to determine is the purchaser 21 years old or not, and they don't always do that. Some get them from a social source, which could mean a friend or a friend's older sibling. And did you know you can order these products off the internet and have them delivered to your home? So these are the most common ways that teens obtain these products. And not only does it create the health problems we already talked about, it can create pneumonia, asthma, cardiovascular disease, skin disorders, oral health, disorientation, seizure, hypotension, and others. And of course, I explain what that means to teens who don't know. And you might have heard of secondhand smoke. That would be like if I'm smoking in my car and you're with me, but you're not smoking, you're still inhaling that air. So that's secondhand exposure. And third hand is I smoke in my house. You come over to my house. I'm not smoking now, but you're inhaling the air in the environment that is in my carpeting, in my blinds, in my couch. Okay, so people can get second and third hand exposure from vaping. Okay, and of course, during the COVID-19 crisis, it was causing people to get sick because it's a lung disease. COVID-19 was a lung disease, or is, I should say, and people who vape were compromising their lungs. So this is a different video. We'll skip that. Okay, and vitamin E acetate is the culprit here. What they did is they took fluid samples of people who vaped and people who did not. And what they determined is they found vitamin E acetate in the lung fluid of people who vaped and not people who didn't. So while vitamin E sounds safe, it's a vitamin, it's safe as a supplement, it's safe on our skin, it is not safe to have in our lungs because it's harmful if inhaled. This young man, they don't tell you this on Good Morning America, but he is from Grosse Pointe, Michigan. The hospital that he went to for a double lung transplant was actually Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit. This is a young man who didn't vape very often. He got sick one day, got severe headaches, had trouble breathing. His mother asked him, "Are you vaping?" He said no, and his condition continued to deteriorate. So she took him to the emergency room, and on the way there, she asked him again, "Are we sure this has nothing to do with vaping?" And then he admitted, "Yes, I do vape." So what happened over time, his physical condition deteriorated to the point where he was in a coma for 29 days. He was very close to death, and he needed a double lung transplant at the age of 15. So lucky for him, there was a donor. He got the lung transplant, and he is taking 20 medications a day. This was before the pandemic. He was required to wear a mask around people because his immune system was compromised. He lost a lot of weight. He had to go through some pretty intensive physical therapy. And basically what he told other teens when he was interviewed is that he feels like he got a second lease on life. But at first he didn't believe that this was a result of vaping because lots of his friends vape and nobody needed a double lung transplant. So he was one of the unlucky ones, but he did survive. And now he started a foundation where he goes to schools and other groups to educate teens about his experience. Okay, so this is the popcorn lung I was talking about. Look on the upper right side of the popcorn lung. It looks like popcorn. So it's not reversible. And it's called popcorn lung because the chemical diacetyl was inhaled 40 hours a week, every week by a group of people who worked at a microwave popcorn factory, and they all developed the same disease, the same lung problem. So that's why they call it popcorn lung. Diacetyl is the chemical that's responsible. Now, for all of us to make microwave popcorn in our homes, we're fine to do that. Nothing bad is going to happen to us because we're not inhaling it 40 hours a week, every week. But what does this have to do with vaping? Well, diacetyl is in the vape products. And what you're looking at there is the front seat of a car. Obviously, there's been an explosion. Chargers can explode. Every once in a while, you'll hear about someone who has a vape in the pocket of their jeans and it explodes. It can cause fires and poisoning. And if you go for a walk in your neighborhood, you are very likely to find vape products, on the ground. People throw them out of the car. They get rid of them that way. So hazardous waste and litter. And we're not going to talk about marijuana because we did a presentation a few weeks ago about marijuana, but you can use marijuana marijuana can be vaped as well. So we can go to the next slide. And then we teach teens refusal skills, ways of saying no, not just to vaping or alcohol or marijuana use, but really any uncomfortable situation. It could be bullying, cheating on a test, shoplifting, whatever it may be. What we find is the teens lack the knowledge of how to get out of an uncomfortable situation. So we educate them on refusal skills. What I often do is ask parents to take a picture of this screen when they're in our class. And as unfortunate as this may be, very few of them do. We tell them role play with your kids, practice with your kids so that you can, they can have these skills practice the skills when they're not under stress so they can have the skills when they are under stress. So some people want to stop vaping and they try and they can't. So we encourage people to contact their pediatrician or family doctor to discuss treatment options. And many of you remember the commercials, never quit quitting, because it takes multiple attempts to quit vaping nicotine. And then there's people who want to quit marijuana use and they can't either. So they might need help from an addiction treatment program like the one in our community where I work. It's Henry Ford Maple Grove Center. But treatment programs are everywhere. And if a person does not have insurance or they cannot afford treatment, they have county money available in any county to help people. So that should never be a barrier for treatment. So here where Maple Grove is located, Oakland County, it's the Oakland Community Health Network, but every county has their own agency. And then there's other types of programs to help teens quit. There's online programs, there's texting programs. Teens can access a coach to help them quit. And there's more programs after that. This one is a program for teens and a separate one for parents. And then there's consequences, of course. In Michigan, the law is that a person, I should have changed this. Now the law is that the person has to be 21 to use, possess, purchase, attempt to purchase any type of tobacco or tobacco products. And of course, it's against the law to falsify your age or use a fake ID. So the first fine is $100. And of course, we hope that the parents will have the child pay it. Second violation is $500 and third or more is $2,500. So there's school-related consequences. As our students know, they were given a suspension or a class. They might also be referred to youth assistance, which is a juvenile diversion program. They don't want kids to be involved in the juvenile justice system if they can help it. So they have like a diversionary counselor that gets involved to help kids to avoid the juvenile justice system. And of course, there's parental and family consequences and peer consequences. There are peers, like 80% of teens are not vaping, and they do not approve of the 20% who do. But the 20% think that everyone's doing it. And statistics show, confidential anonymous surveys show that that is not true. So what happens if they get caught again? They will not be referred to a diversionary class. They'll be referred to youth assistance. They would be suspended, and if they continue to violate, they're going to end up in the juvenile court system. And with that, we can end. Does anybody have any questions or comments about anything in our presentation today?
You guys can unmute and ask your questions, or if you want, you can type them in the chat and I'll be happy to read them.
I have a question. I have a friend that used to smoke, and she wanted to vape to stop smoking cigarettes. And so she has stopped smoking cigarettes, but she now does vape, and she says that there's no nicotine in her vape. And I know you said that there has to be, a little bit in there, but is like, what would have been better, to now vape what she does, or to smoke like she used to do?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. When you say there's a little nicotine, how do you know there's just a little? You don't know. Okay, so the better thing for her to do is to try to quit using nicotine products completely. And if she can't quit on her own, and it's very hard to do that, doctors can prescribe the nicotine patch, the gum, and there's two medications that are commonly used. One is Wellbutrin and one is Chantix. And so those are medications that doctors can prescribe to help someone quit smoking. But any way you look at it, whether someone's smoking a traditional cigarette or vaping, it is not safe or healthy.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have any more questions? So Lisa, the bottom line is, for vaping tobacco, you cannot be certain what's in the chemical that you're vaping. And the chemical in itself, because it is not actual water vapor, it's harming your lung.
That's right. And you also can't be sure about the amount of nicotine, because the FDA doesn't require them to report it.
Okay.
I have one quick question. So we all know that secondhand smoke from cigarettes is really harmful, which is why it's banned. Everywhere in public places. But for vaping, that's not the case. Is there anything being done for that? Because no matter where you go, there's people vaping, and kids are still around that person who's vaping in parks and everything, everywhere else.
Yeah, I'm not sure I heard you completely, but you're wondering, is there anything in place legally to prevent people from vaping in public places where people have to get secondhand smoke?
That's right.
Okay, so when they say no smoking, they're saying no vaping too. The problem is, for example, at a restaurant, if I'm sitting at a table in a restaurant and I have a vape and it's odorless, if I just take a hit off of it, who's gonna know? Right? So to enforce that's gonna be really, really tough. It wouldn't be tough if I used a vape that had a big puff of smoke. Everybody could see that. That would be enforceable because they're breaking the rules of the establishment.
So is this rule throughout the US or is it in certain states? Because we were just at a amusement park and people were vaping pretty openly, and they had the ones that actually made a lot of vape or the smoke that comes out. I don't know what the actual
Yeah.
word or term for it is.
Yeah, so if it's outside, it's legal. Just like smoking a traditional cigarette outside is legal.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions, you guys? All great questions. Good deal, good deal. We're more than happy to provide the information. Well, Lisa, excellent presentation as as always. And if there aren't any more questions or comments, we will bring this session to a close and see you all next time. And everybody have a great day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.